Alright, back again. So now let's look at some units of the Old Dominion. So again, in this section, I just want to quickly go through some of the units and see like how they would fit it in the army and what roles that they fulfill. So let's go through it alphabetically, starting first here with the Atana toy. So the Atana toy is has a lot of interesting abilities. Particularly, the most important part is Flurry, reroll fail to hit, with the attack of 2, and also has an ability called Bodyguards. Caravans do not cause the regiments to break by refusing a duel. So sort of like, you can keep your strategos in the Atana toy and send them on like a sort of like a mission to kill something. Enemy vessel, as well as having some counter attacks. So when they punch, if you roll a defense rolls of 1, they take a hit. So the Atana toy represents sort of like a unit, a flanking force that you send to your opponent. Because like a stand of the Atana toys, where you have just 3 stands of Atana toys, they can generate 24 attacks, plus the leaders of 25 attacks. Plus, if you sort of bring in like your strategos, suddenly you get an extra like 4 attacks. So 29 attacks with the Atana toys. Of course, they'll be hitting at Clash 2. But with the Inspire bonus making them Clash 3 on the charge, as well as Flurry, you can get a lot of hits. And then after you go get a lot of hits, because of the Animate Vessel, it gives you Terrifying 1, it gives you a lot of potential damage for these boys. However, the unfortunate downside of the Atana toys is that they have movement of 5, and also they have a very low defense of only 2. So they can be picked up by archers relatively fast, and if the enemy units look at them funny, they die. So these guys sort of remind me of like the Vanguard clones from Spire, sort of like a unit that can punch a lot of things, but is also quite squishy as well. But because they have no resolve, which means that they can be a bit more survivable than the Vanguard clones, even though they have 1 less defense. Now, Bone Golems are the heavy brute of the Old Dominion. These are the ones that's already been previewed, the one that looks like a giant walking graveyard. So a few things to unpack from these lurking golems. First of all, they are heavy, so they can come out earliest in turn 3 without any help. And then they have a bunch of special rules. The special rules are Cleave 2, which ignores 2 armors, Relentless Blow, which is a roll of 1 cause additional hit, Unstoppable, which gives them reroll on the charge, Harden 1, which ignores Cleave, Brutal Impact, or Armor Piercing by 1, Aura of Death 2. Now, the most important ability of Bone Golems is this one right here, Aura of Death 2. So, if you just look at the stats, they have Clash of 2, they have 4 attacks, they have Defense of 3, they have Wound of 6. They're not gonna punch a lot in combat. They're, with 4 attacks, 3 models, 12 attacks, Clash of 2 with Inspire, how much will hit. However, they start becoming a bit more insane once they have Aura of Death 2 and their Memories of Old of Aura of Death plus 1. So you can sort of start stacking Aura of Death on these guys. Because they have a large base, which means that there's going to be a lot of models that can be in contact with the Bone Golems. So most of the time, things will just die when they activate near Bone Golems. And this is a very cool sort of, I guess, flavor-wise, because these are the golems that bring in sort of like the corruption, etc. And then, things die when they get near to the Bone Golem. So the Bone Golem is a heavy, but at the same time, it is an extremely resilient unit with fairly high defense and harden, no resolve test, and having the ability to sort of move in, double move, and the next turn you can go charge with Unstoppable to the opponent, becoming where they need them to be to do sort of like the maximum damage. Butch, or Butch, as we call it here, is a brute medium. So these are sort of like the Minotaurs. They're Minotaurs, essentially. So their role is sort of to be expected. They have Brutal Impact 1, Cleave 3, holy crap, I just realized that, and Unstoppable, which means they get a reroll on their charge. So the Brutal Impact 1 plus Cleave 3 means that if they get to punch something, it's a lot of armor piercing. You can kiss your good armor goodbye. You know, even the Dweck Home Warrior with Defense 3 will sort of sweat when being charged by a Minotaur, by an undead Minotaur. With the Memories of Old, they gain Unstoppable Charge, which is different from Unstoppable. Unstoppable Charge doubles the amount of impact hits, and then they have also Brutal Impact plus 2. So meaning on a good turn, they activate the Brutal Impact plus 2 with the Unstoppable Charge, and they'll be charging in. So that's 12 impact hits with Clash of 3, with Brutal Impact 2, and then when they get to punch, Brutal Impact plus 2, so Brutal Impact 3, and then they also have Cleave 3. So Butch here is a unit that you just sort of want to keep in reserve for a bit. They're not meant to be the ones sort of taking the damage, but when they can countercharge, they become insanely good. They can wreck a lot of armor units, and you know they're not good for clearing out the chest, but for clearing out armored units, they're really, really good. And then we have the Cataphraktoi. The Cataphraktoi are sort of the living statue. I think if you've seen a picture of the sort of the old Dominion design, they're probably one of the two units here. Maybe the one with like the marble statue, etc. So the Cataphraktoi are the heavy brute. Again, they sort of come in with the same role as sort of like the bone golems. They're sort of like the cleanup crews. But the Cataphraktoi is more of the extremely defensive unit when it comes to their stats line. So movement of 6, volley of 1, clash 3, attack 4, wound 4, defense 3, evasion 2. They come in with a lot of bells and whistles for all the defensive stuff. They have untouchable, which means that support units do not gain any supporting attacks. Bless, so they can reroll. Flurry and Cleave 1, very good combination. Harden 1, as well as Animate Vessel. They also come in with Flawless Strike, which if they roll to hit 1, they get Smite. So this coupled with Flurry can give them randomly also like a good punch. So the Cataphraktoi here is sort of like the very tough unit that you send in to hold a flank, because they have a bevy of abilities that basically combines them to be extremely survivable against any types of attacks. Alright, Karyatid is my favorite unit in Old Dom. Let me just put it out there. This is my love. I really, really, really love this unit. This unit is extremely, extremely fun to play with. So the Caryatids are sort of like the range archers. They're a brute archer. They have movement of 6. They have fairly basic stats. They have volley of 2, clash of 2, attack of 4, wound 4, defense 3, yada yada. They also come in with armor piercing 2, which negates 2 armors on the shot. Deadly shot. If they roll a 6, they gain 2 wounds. And then they have barrage 3 at 30 inches. So when they move and shoot, they have a range of 36. And because they're a brute model, which comes in on a brute base, they can ignore line of sight to sort of basically anything because they're size 3. Sorry, size 2. So they can ignore like size 1. They can shoot anything that they look at. It's probably a very cool anti-archer unit because with their armor piercing 2 deadly shot, you can essentially look at an archer unit, for example, they're 30-inch longbowmen, and then they can just move in and shoot. And, they have a good defense with evasion 2 and also wound 4. So the counter shot from these guys will not be as painful. Because of the barrage 3 plus the leader, so they'll be shooting at 6 shots with armor piercing 2 and deadly shot. They can put a dent on archer units. And because they can do it from like an extreme range, when they come out of the reinforcement line, they can already do a lot of work. So I love this unit. I love this unit so much because it's the perfect sort of archer, counter archer unit. So it's really cool. I really, really like this unit. And yeah. They also have Erinias, which gives them fluid formation. But I don't usually take those. Alright, the 2 Centaur bros here. You got the Centaur Cavalry. So the Centaur Cavalry is more of sort of the archer units. They're the ones who they're sort of like the horse archers, but in this one they're literally horse. They're a horse and they're an archer. So not like horse archers, they're horse archer units. So they're a cavalry medium unit that has a speed of 8 with strong arm, armor piercing, deadly shot, and barrage 3 at 16 inches. So these guys are sort of like a unit that you send in to harass the flank because they have a high enough speed, and also they can also punch in when they have to because they're still a cavalry unit. They get impact hits and they have a fairly decent attack stats as well. So what's important for the Centaur Caryatid here? The way that they operate is fairly similar to how a Raptor Rider operates. They have a combination of strong arm, armor piercing, and deadly shot with barrage 3 at 16 inches. The strong arm just means that they can't be obscured due to long range. So they have essentially a threat range of 24 inches when they move and shoot, and they'll be always hitting at 10 dice with a volley of 2. So this unit is extremely nice for flanking and sort of catching any sort of like archer units, as well as any sort of units that are having medium armor. So they're really good. Also, their memories of hull come in with sure shot. They count intervening regiments or terrains. So with sure shot, like a unit that's hiding in a forest will not be safe from these guys. The second Centaur is a light Centaur. This is sort of like the melee Centaur. They come in at a cheap 170 points. They're light, which means at turn 1 they can come out. They have a speed of 8 with cleave 1, shield, and throwing weapons. So these guys are, and also memories of hold, unstoppable charge, which gives them double impact, and brutal impact 1, which reduces defense by 1 on the impact hit. So the Centaur Prodromoi is important because of the speed 8. So it has an ability to extend your reinforcement line very, very quickly. So Old Dom is sort of slow, but at the same time, because you have access to units such as the Centaur Prodromois, you can move up your reinforcement line a bit more faster than your opponent, and then you can sort of get to the mid range where you can then pump out your Caryatids and stuff shooting from the flank, or bringing your Butch on like the midpoint of the battlefield. So this is sort of like the role for the Centaur Prodromoi. Now, the Cultists here is important because there are the one of the 2 human units that exist in Old Dom. So these are the guys who sort of like worships the god of death, the goddess of death, and then the most important part is that they don't have animate vessel. So as you can see, they have a resolve stats, and they don't generate tokens when they die. What they do then, however, is that they have Oblivious, which ignores resolve tests. You only take the half of the damage of resolve test. They also blow up and they die. And they also have Liquid Anathema, which gives them an extra 2 from hitting by Aura of Death special rule. So the Cultists are sort of like a light range unit. They're also extremely cheap at 105 points. Mainly I use these units as sort of like a cheap filler to bring out your Hero Deacons at turn 1, because they can come out already, and then the Hero Deacons can start using its spells to increases your Dark Token pools. And they're not that good at shooting, but they're also extremely cheap. So you're not exactly mad for bringing these guys. You're quite happy for bringing these guys. On the opposite end, you get the Hash Assassin. So the Hash Assassin, I'm kidding you. They're on the reverse side of the Cultists. They're more expensive. They also have Vanguard, which means that when they come out, they can take another free march action. They have Cleave 1 and Flurry with attack of 2. So the Assassin is extremely hard hitting. I think their stats line really reminds me of the Atana toys. So the difference with Atana toys is that they don't have Cleave, and the Assassin has Cleave. They also have the Vanguard, but they have attack of 2 with Flurry, as well as similar to Atana toys with their attack 2 and Flurry as well. So the Assassin most important role in this thing is just because they have the Vanguard ability, so they can move out from the reinforcement line and then engage key targets. It'll also give them the Master Hashassin, which gives them the Deadly Blade, make them like a mini Vanguard clone infiltrators, as well as the Apostate, which gives them flank. The Cultist also has access to the Apostate. So with 215 points, you have a unit that can come out on turn 2 with Vanguard. So essentially, they'll be moving. The first time is 15 inches, which is not too bad. So the role of the assassin is pretty straightforward. It's a scalpel. You use it to, defeat an enemy position, and then you send these guys. Kataphraktoi. Now the Kataphraktoi. Okay, so this is a bit of unfortunate, I would say, rebalance, because the Strategist Cavalry has movement of 8, while the Kataphraktoi has a movement of 7. So they're a bit slower than your 100 Kingdom Knights, but what they lack, they come in with Stride. Brutal Impact 2, Shock, which gives them the Inspired Bonus increase to +2 instead of +1, and then Unstoppable Charge, which doubles their impact hits. So these guys is extremely strong when it comes to the charging action. They have 5 attacks each, so a minimum would be 15. With Shock and Unstoppable Charge, so they'll be hitting at 15 impact hits with 5 attacks that has Shock, which gives them Clash 4 essentially when they attack. They don't have Cleave on the charge, but with the combination of Brutal Impact 2 and Shock, they should be able to break things on the charge. They also have Defensive 3 with Shield, so they're essentially Defense 4, and they also come in with Evasion 1, and they don't have any Resolve. So you also upgrade them with Hetairos, which gives them the Overrun. So you get to perform another charge action if it's charge against a broken regiment or causes a charge action that becomes broken as a result of their impact attacks. So it essentially doubles their impact attacks again, and then it gives you a charge action. So for 250 points with the Hetairos, you suddenly have this sort of steamroller that can, just literally overrun and overwhelm the entire flank if given the right momentum. You can also add some companion cavalry to give them the Fury +1. So Kataphraktoi is the premier cavalry of the Old Dom, and with the Fluff set, they are the best cavalry unit in the world. Well, the world of Ea. And they started quite slow slumbering, but as they wake up and they remember to use their lance on the charge, and then suddenly they have access to these powerful abilities. So Keras comes in with a dual kit of the Keras and Moroy. Keras is sort of like the spellcaster that has an access to spells, Drain Will, which gives them -1 defense, as well as Insanity, which gives them a damage but equal to their resolve characteristic instead of the defense value. Keep in mind that Insanity against Old Dominion, which has no resolve, will not work. They also come in with a bunch of special abilities. They have Obscure, so they count as Obscure when they're being shot at range attack. They also Barrage 1, so they can randomly shoot stuff. They have Sure Shot, which ignores intervening regiments or terrains. They also have Strong Arm. So these guys are both a spellcaster as well as the Shooty McShoot from this activity. So they're mainly there because they're mainstays. Important rule for this one is that this regiment may not be joined by character stance. However, it counts towards the character restriction of including at least one mainstay regiment. So the fluff behind the Keras is because they're spooky ghosts. So, characters can't join them because they're spooky ghosts. They're incorporeal. So that's why they have this ability locked into it. We'll go and talk about the Moroys. So the Moroy are... So, let me tell you a story about the Moroy and how it was extremely scary when we were sort of playtesting these guys. Well, I'm not going to tell you the process of the playtesting or how it was before the playtesting, but, this is the unit that can literally one-shot the entire army if you just spam these guys. Luckily, they've taken a step towards addressing that, so it's no longer the monster that it was. But so let's go talk about Moroy. They have roughly the same stat as their Keras counterpart. The only difference is that they have a higher clash of 2 and they also have a stack of 2. So, what makes this spooky Romanian ghost extremely scary? They have movement of 6. They have fluid formation. They have a clash of 2. They have attack of 2. They have cleave 1. And they have aura of death of 2. Imagine you're fighting against a bunch of Moroys. The Moroy will just move and charge. Sure, they don't get an attack, but when you activate, you take aura of death 2. You take 6 auto hits with the terrifying rules. You punch them, they have evasion of 2, they can shrug it off. They also have randomly defensive 1, nice. And they don't have a resolve test. So, for example, 1 stand die or 5 guys die. They activate, they punch again, they have a clash of 2, attack of 2, whatever remaining times 2, and then suddenly they're punching you with, 7, 14 attacks at cleave 1 and terrifying 1. And then when the opponent activates again, they take aura of death 2. So this unit is a whirlwind of death. They're extremely, extremely scary. The only downside of these guys is that now you have to pay for the spells, and the 2 spells aren't too bad. The first one is the Immolation, which gives them aura of death plus X, where X is the success divided by 2. So maximum of 5. So for example, if they get Wizard plus 1, so the success divided by 2. So they become aura of death 3 or death 4, which is extremely scary. And Translocation, which gives them a teleport. Sucks so much, ignoring all intervening regiment stance and or terrain. Very, 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 very cool. And they can move sideways backwards without having to half its movement. So it's essentially a teleport. Very, very cool. Very, very scary. Their main role is sort of just to extend your reinforcement line and sort of just to engage the enemy soft and squishy units. They'll struggle a bit with armor, but they're really, really good. Legionnaires. So Legionnaires is the signature unit of the Old Dom, I would say. The Legionnaires are sort of like your bulk infantry unit that they have in most other factions. However, dial this up defensive-wise to the max. They have defensive 1, but they have shield, so they have defensive 2, and when they get Memories of Old, they get Phalanx, which also gives them an extra defense. So they're defense 3 when they have their memories, with support plus 1, and they don't have any morals. Resolve. Scary, scary, scary unit. You can also add in a bunch of stuff like the Icon Pair, which also gives them extra empowerment pools. You can also give them the Acolyte. For example, if you have an army that's full of spellcasters, so you can cast spells to these units regardless of range. The Dark Cenotaph, which gives them Dread, once per army. The Profane Reliquary, which gives an aura of death plus 1. Centurion, which gives them Flawless Drill. As well as the Optio, which gives them Vanguard. So, a lot of these units are very sort of good shell to have. They have a lot of options that you can build in. Of course, my favorite one is the adding the Profane Reliquary, so they have Aura of Death 1. So not only when they punch, they also trigger off Aura of Death, and also because they have support plus 1, they have support 1 naturally. You also gain a lot of support hits. So you want to make a big line of Legionnaires that goes to the back, so you get a lot of benefits from these support abilities. On the flip side, the Praetorian Guard is the sort of like, they have the extreme defense. Starting off with defense of 2 with Shield, Phalanx, and Bastion 1. Yes, you are not reading this incorrectly. They have a defense of 5 with no resolve. Yes, for 165 points unit and an investment in Memory of Zolfol, you get a defense 5 units that just, won't be Butch across from the battlefield. Elite unit, very powerful. You send them in where the fighting is the thickest. You want to hold the line. You want to carry characters. You give them extra protection. You put them in Praetorian Guard. Defense 5. That's all you need to know about this unit. Defense 5. The Profane Sepulchre. So this is an interesting unit. It's a monster. It's a medium monster with a movement of 4, clash 2, attack 8, wound 14, blah blah blah. But the most important ability of this guy is that it comes in with default. Well, not the most important one. They also have Unhallowed Ground. So, in the same warband as the Profane Sepulchre, creates a Dark Power Pool tier as if it was one tier higher. Very powerful. And then the most important one is the Draw event, which gives them Fanatical Devotion. So, I might need to go into some of the army building in order to maximize this ability. So this is, okay, I might need to explain this ability a little bit. So when you activate the Profane Sepulchre, it will come in the draw event of the Exhortation of Eternal Fate. So all friendly regiments within X gains the Fanatical Devotion special rule, where X is depending on the tier of the Dark Power Pool, so say like 8 inches. And then, whenever this regiment is the target of a friendly spell cast by a model with the Priest rule, it is healed for 3 wounds. So this combos in with, for example, things like Moroy. Sorry, not Moroy. Keras. Never mind, Keras is offensive. What am I doing? So with like things like Archimandrite, they want to cast a spell, the Hazlias Touch, 1+X. And then suddenly they heal another 3. Profane Sepulchre. They heal 3. So suddenly, you need to set this up a bit. The setup is a bit difficult because you need the draw event of the Profane Sepulchre to go in first, and then you activate the Priest in order to heal. So it's not an easy setup setting up these two combos, but the fact that already some very tough units in the Old Dominion, because they don't have any resolve, is then healed for an extra 3 is backbreaking when you can pull it off. Things like Bone Golems, healing them for 3. Things like the Canaphores, healing them for 3. What about the Fallen Divinity? You heal them for 3. Pretty insane. So, it's a tech piece. Of course, it's also 220 points. You can't really sort of, with this and the Fallen Divinity, you're essentially bringing 520 points for like, support pieces. But hey, it does a lot of work. It's also a monster that's also medium with 14 wounds and, fairly good defense. It can randomly punch people as well, so Profane Sepulchre is both a support piece as well as it can do a lot of the carrying of the battle itself. Really powerful. Last unit is the Varangian Guard, which doesn't have Bodyguard for whatever reason, but what it lacks in Bodyguard, it comes to with Tenacious, so they ignore 1 defense roll. They come in with Cleave 2 and Line Breaker, which ignores 1 from Shield and Bastion, and well, a Cleave +1. So this is the last infantry, the heavy infantry. The Varangian Guard, I'm not a huge fan of this unit for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's heavy infantry. Heavy units in this game will need a lot of work in getting to where they need to be. That's why you sort of, when you're trying to build a list with heavy units, you need to keep in mind of the scenarios. Like, there are scenarios that makes heavy units come in a little bit easier, like heavy duty, but at the same time, the fastest that these guys will come out is turn 3, and then the earliest that they can make an impact is that turn +1. So just keep in mind when you're trying to build a heavy list. I swear to God that wasn't a pun. So just keep in mind. But for the packages you're getting a Clash 3 unit with defense of 3 that can, go into a hard flank with their Cleave 3 and Clash 3 with the Inspire. They can do a lot of work. They can also be coming with Dark Cenotaph, which gives them red, or the Princeps, and they can perform Inspire action as if they're not an animate vessel. So overall, this is sort of like the breakdown of the Old Dominion units. If you want, so what I'll do is that I'll end the video here today, just so that you can get a look at the units yourself, make some sample lists, etc. What I'll do next week is I'll try to take the starter list that we have, and then we'll do the usual, this is what 750 points is like, this is 1000 points is like, and this is what 1500 points is like. Until then, thanks for watching this video. I hope you have a great time in looking at Old Dominion. The Vanguards have spent a lot of time in playtesting this, and I'm proud to say that I've helped in those. So enjoy our fruits of labor. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time.